Three's the Charm by MissCHSparkles. Chapter 12. They could not stop laughing as they ran back to their compartment. The looks on the twins' faces had just been priceless. Ron in particular had a rather gleeful look on his face as they collapsed into their seats, causing Crookshanks to give them a curious look as Scabbers slept on. "That was bloody brilliant!" Ron declared, wiping tears of laughter away. "They're gonna get you back for that." Harry reminded them with a chuckle, but Ron waved that away. "They'd get me whether or not I did anything. This way they might actually show me a bit of respect." His face faded a little as he said that. "They've always had a go at me." "Why is that?" Hermione asked with a frown. "And what about Percy?" Ron chuckled rather grimly. "Percy may be easy to wind up and be stuffy to boot, but he's 2 years older than them. As much as they don't like to admit it, he's got more magical experience and knowledge than them. So if they try anything, he doesn't find it difficult to counter it. As for Bill, well, they wouldn't dare try anything beside putting beetles in his soup. He's a curse breaker for Merlin's sake. Charlie wrestles dragons for a living, so he's a match for them. And Ginny's Mum's precious baby. Trust me, if they tried half the things they had with me on her, they wouldn't be able to walk by the time Mum was finished with them." He looked out the window rather moodily. "But I'm 2 years younger, and a boy, so I'm free range for them. Especially Fred. Sometimes I don't know what his problem is." Hermione sat beside him and put her arm around him. "I'm sure he wasn't being deliberately malicious, but, as you said, you had a disadvantage being a lot younger. Plus, he always had George to back him up. I suppose me and Harry can't really understand, since we don't have siblings, and Harry's cousin doesn't really count." "Yeah," Ron mumbled, before saying in a rush, "But I don't want him to die. I'd died if he died again, you know." "We know," Hermione said soothingly. "He might be, as you say, a git, but he's your brother, and you still love him. He and George got on a lot better once they've got their joke shop to focus on." As Ron nodded, Harry added, "And don't forget, you're a lot older than him, and you've got a few tricks up your sleeve. You can handle anything they throw at you." Ron half smiled before saying, "What about their joke shop? I mean, we don't know if you're going to be in the Triwizard Tournament or anything." "We'll find a way," Harry assured him. "At the very least, I think Sirius would be interested in helping found their business. Probably give him something to focus on." "Yeah," Ron said with a sigh. He wanted his brother's dream to succeed, even if they did delight in tormenting him at times. With a slight shake, he said briskly, "So, it'll be great to be back at Hogwarts, won't it?" "It will be wonderful," Hermione agreed with a happy sigh. "We'll see everyone again. All our friends, the teachers, everything." "It'll be brilliant," Harry said with a nod. "Although we need to avoid Quirrell. We can't risk Voldemort seeing what we are." As his friends nodded, Ron said, "It'll be weird getting sorted again, won't it?" Hermione and Harry nodded as Hermione said slowly, "You know, it's funny. If we wanted to, we could probably be put in a new house." "What?" Ron exclaimed in surprise. He hadn't thought of this at all. "It's true," Harry said. "The sorting hat takes our choices into account. If you're desperate to go somewhere, it'll put you there." "But why would you want to go into a different house?" Ron persisted. He couldn't imagine being anywhere but Gryffindor. "We're not saying we don't want to go to Gryffindor," Hermione said quickly. "It's just interesting that we could go to another house. We would have no circle of friends for one, wouldn't we? A new dormitory, a new head of house. It opens a lot of possibilities." Ron frowned at this before grimacing. "Ugh, imagine having Snape as your head. It'd be a nightmare." "Would he, though?" Harry mused. "We all know he favours his students. And if we were his students, chances are he wouldn't hate us. And we'd have an opportunity to convince Slytherins they don't have to follow Voldemort." "You'd have to deal with Malfoy," Ron pointed out. "That would be trying," Harry acknowledged. "But you know, we never had much to do with some of the other Slytherins. Some of them might be all right." We could help them realise they don't have to be enemies with every Gryffindor they come across. Suppose so, Ron said before smiling. But there's no way I could ever be a Slytherin. Even if I was cunning and stuff. You can bet me and Malfoy would just argue all the time. Not to mention my brothers would never let me hear the end of it. Good point. Harry chuckled. Well, I can definitely see you in Ravenclaw, Ron said to Hermione, who smiled and said, I think you could go as well. Me? Ron exclaimed in great surprise. But I'm not brainy. Compared to the others in our year, you are, Hermione reminded him with a smile. You are intelligent, Ron. You always have been. But now you have a distinct advantage. You won't struggle at all with the coursework, so you would do just fine at Ravenclaw. Ron considered this thoughtfully, before shaking his head. I don't think Ravenclaw's for me. They like to study way too much. I wouldn't fit in. I know they're not all obsessed with studying and stuff, but I just wouldn't be able to get into it. And if any of them get wind of the fact that I know more than I should, all they'll want me to do is study or tutor people. That's fair enough, Hermione said with a nod. We're just discussing what it would be like to be in different houses. Yeah, Harry said. It had been something he had pondered over the summer. In a way, I could see myself in Slytherin, and maybe even Hermione too. Hermione's Muggle-born, Ron pointed out, as Hermione herself said. But there are Muggle-borns in Slytherin. They just keep their heads down a lot. And from what I've read, it's only during times of pure blood mania that you get less Muggle-borns there. I think the Sorting Hat could put those who truly belong in Slytherin so as to protect the others. But you could show that not all Slytherins are evil, Harry said slowly. You're the best in our year and kind. It could help change their image. Yes, but I don't know if I could ever get along with Pansy and some of the other girls, Hermione said wistfully. I've managed to make friends with most of the girls in our years, even a couple of the Slytherin girls, but most of them couldn't stand me. I think I'd rather be in a different house. You'd want Ravenclaw for that, Ron said wisely. Slytherins look down on Hufflepuffs and hate Gryffindors, but I've noticed a lot of them make friends with the Ravenclaws. I heard they share a couple of classes, and they respect the Ravens for their smarts, even if they think they're boring at times. I even heard Snape tolerates the Ravens out of the 3 houses the most. That's a good point, Hermione said. And in a way, our advanced knowledge would in some way... That's a good point, Hermione said. And in a way, our advanced knowledge would be in some way easier to hide, because it wouldn't be difficult to make friends with other houses. We could even look out for Luna, make sure she wasn't bullied so badly. Harry had confessed this to his friends in 6th year, to help them understand the girl better. He liked Luna a lot, and wanted her to have more allies in Hogwarts. And when he saw that mural on her bedroom ceiling, he had seen it had worked. As everyone thought about the issue of houses, Ron spoke somewhat hesitantly. This might sound stupid, but I don't want to be separated from you guys. He continued quickly as they looked at him. I know I could maybe go into a different house, but Gryffindor's my home, my house, and I don't want to leave it. I know you guys would be great in the other houses. You're both loyal and kind as anything, and you'd make great badgers. But maybe I'm wrong, but if we're all separated, won't that make things harder? You know, trying to change things? Think how much harder it'll be to meet and talk up. This made his friends pause and give this serious thought. Seeing they weren't adding anything else, Ron added, If you guys went to Ravenclaw and I went to Gryffindor, we'd barely be able to see each other. We only share classes with the Badgers and the Snakes. They rotate these things every year. We're only really allowed to sit at our house tables, and we're not meant to visit each other's dormitories. I'm not trying to force you guys to stay with me, he said hurriedly, worried they might think he was holding them back or something. But it would make hanging out next to impossible, and planning. I think we do need to be together for that. Otherwise, it won't work. There was a pause, and then Harry said, I think you're right, Ron. We do need to be together. Not just because of planning, but because we're a team. You guys are my best friends, and I don't want to be separated from you. I've been thinking about how we can change things. And if we split up, who knows what might have changed? Things have already changed, and we've barely started. It's all about to get out of control if we change stuff we don't need to. And I think it's time Gryffindor reached out to the other houses, specifically Slytherin, Hermione now said. Ravenclaw is already friends with Slytherin. We don't really need to do anything there. We really need to try to reunite Slytherin and Gryffindor. They were once best friends. We can start with our year mates, and maybe, as time goes on, we can influence the younger years, so that they don't have to hate each other. We can reach out to everyone, Harry said softly. It's not going to be easy, but we've got a good chance, I think. We know the Badgers aren't stupid. Especially Cedric. His voice trailed away slightly, as he remembered he would be seeing the kind boy again. Probably the most innocent of all the beings he had seen die. And he was alive and whole. Harry had to swallow heavily before clearing his throat and continuing. And the ravens aren't all obsessed with studying. And as for the snakes, I know they're not all evil. Hell, most of them definitely aren't. Only a few individuals, just like there are probably some in other houses. We know that, and we can help others see that. Show them that Gryffindors aren't just brave idiots. He flushed a little as he said this, just as the thought was working him up a bit. We can make a real difference. Show them not everyone's a stereotype. That people can share traits of more than one house. We can, Hermione said firmly. And even though they still resided in barely teenage bodies, somehow felt like they were back in their old adult bodies. Just the sheer conviction and determination that these three had was enough to create this strange illusion. A moment later, it was broken as Ron said, So, Gryffindor then? Gryffindor! Harry and Hermione agreed. Thank Merlin, Ron sighed. Oliver would kill you if you weren't in Gryffindor, Harry. He probably would, Harry said as he laughed. He did wonder, if he had headed for Slytherin, how many people would have refused to even consider being friends with him? Would even the Weasley twins turn their back? I'm starving, Ron suddenly declared. Can we eat lunch? Some things never change. Hermione giggled, but she was giving the hamper a rather hungry look, so it was all said in jest. Some time later they were all enjoying their lunch. Both Harry and Hermione were very impressed, and told Ron that he seemed to have inherited his mother's talent with food, and made the boy blush with pride. While it was always nice to gorge on a little of the trolley food, having a proper meal was even better. The homemade strawberry lemonade was particularly welcome, as the long journey always made them thirsty. Just as they were more than halfway through, their compartment door opened to reveal a small, plump, and rather tearful boy. Sorry to bother you, he mumbled. Has anyone seen a toad? Oh! Hermione exclaimed, somehow managing to stop herself from blurting out the boy's name. Have you lost your toad? Yeah, Neville said miserably. He keeps getting away. Have you tried asking a prefect to summon him? Hermione asked. But Neville shook his head. No, they just say they haven't seen him. Do you want help looking for him? Hermione said kindly, and Neville shyly nodded. I'll be back in a bit, she said to the two boys, who nodded. I'm Ron, Ron managed to say as Hermione got up, as Harry also introduced himself. Neville mumbled as Hermione joined them in the corridor. Wow, Ron said as the compartment door closed. I'd forgotten what Neville used to be like. Same here, Harry repeated almost faintly. Was this really the boy who had publicly defied Voldemort before decapitating Nagini? It's weird, Ron said quietly, that he could have been the chosen one, if Voldemort had made a different choice. Harry nodded. He had dealt a long time on this. It was probably something he'd never fully know. Why had Voldemort chosen him? Why hadn't he simply gone for both boys, just to be safe? Maybe Voldemort didn't even know. Not fully. He was just the type who got an idea into his head and went for it, no matter what. Ron idly levitated a spare sausage roll into his mouth, chewing in a rather thoughtful way. Neville doesn't have his own wand. he said thickly, still chewing. It was his dad's wand. Yeah, Harry agreed, remembering when Neville broke it and how upset he had been. Well, he had been mostly worried about upsetting his gran, but it appeared that breaking it while fighting off several Death Eaters was acceptable. Neville had been allowed to get his very own wand, and his magical skills had definitely improved. Part of this was because of his confidence had grown, but a new wand did play a huge factor in being able to finally cope with his schoolwork. He had even managed to fence against the dark arts just fine, despite who was teaching. Harry had practically forgotten that bumbling, forgetful boy Neville had been in their younger years, but he was uncomfortably reminded now. Unlike the others who had simply grown into their ability, Neville had basically leapt suddenly into it. Harry did wonder how things would be different now for Neville. "Think Hermione will be able to find Trevor?" he asked Ron, who nodded. "Probably. I bet she'll summon him when Neville's not looking or something." Harry agreed as he helped himself to a bit more pasta. He found he really loved it. "We need to tell him that he's not useless," he said firmly. "He was always convinced he couldn't do anything, even when he was good at things." "He won't believe us," Ron sighed. "Remember, we tried to convince him before? He's been told by his gran and other mad relatives that he can never measure up to his parents. So he's convinced that's true. Especially as he's not instantly great at stuff. It just convinces him even more." Harry smiled ruefully. "Guess we'll have to try harder." Turning more serious, he said, "I think little things can make a big difference. For instance, one of us should try to partner with him in potions, so Snape doesn't get mad. Encourage him in charms and herbology. He was always good at those. And give him help in transfiguration. As for history, well, we all need help with that." Both of them laughed at how true that was. "Okay," Ron said with a grin. "Maybe we could set up something similar to the DA." "Don't tell Hermione." Harry couldn't resist saying, "You know what happens when we suggest this." "Oh, I do," Ron said with a nod, just as Hermione entered. "I found his toad," she said breathlessly, "but I had to walk him back to his compartment. It's almost at the other end of the train. He's with Ernie, Hannah, Faye, and a couple of others." "He's in good company, then," Harry said, relieved Neville was sitting with very good-natured people. She nodded, taking her seat and bending over to help herself to some more lunch. Harry spotted Ron's wide grin, and he knew he was happy that Hermione liked the food so much. He so wanted to please her, and he certainly had. "I'm just heading to the loo," he told his friends before leaving the compartment. "Chocolate frog?" Ron offered to Hermione, who shook her head. "Not when I've still got this," she explained, indicating her slice of tart. "I can't eat sweet before savoury." Ron just shrugged, biting the head off his chocolate frog, examining the card. It was one he hadn't found until he was 13, so he was pleased to make a good start on his collection. Now that he was alone with Hermione, he felt he should say something to her. But just as he started opening his mouth, the compartment door opened, and it wasn't Harry. "Have either of you seen a boy named Harry Potter?" The blonde boy, flanked by two massive bodyguards, drawled. They had finally bumped into Draco Malfoy. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I'm just liking this. Ron's utter honesty in this about the whole Gryffindor situation. I mean, they're talking about the logics and logistics, but Ron's talking about the practicality and also the heart. Ron is the heart of the trio. Many people think it's Harry because he's the main character and the two always help him. But no, Ron is the warmth between the three of them. And I think this amplifies it perfectly. And Hermione helping Neville. Girl's got a big heart. And them having a bit of a bestie chat while she's gone. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and bye my pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.